So week one is here now. Shregs, I'm looking right at you.
Yeah.
Biggest obstacle for the Buccaneers to repeat this season beyond this game?
Well, beyond what Sarah's referring to, the ticket situation, which seems like you can't find
insane.
one. I love
really
that.
cool.
I love it. It is great to be back, and it is great to see both of our reporters there before the sun even comes up, because that means football's back.
Welcome back.
The Buccaneers have been circling this day, obviously, for an entire offseason, but so has every other team in the NFL, and they've got the Bucs circled. Last year's Tampa Bay run was incredible. They were 7-5. They went on a bye week, and they didn't lose another game, and they just finished it up, and everyone was relatively healthy. They lost O.J. Howard early, but for the most part, Vita Vea was in the lineup, then back. Antoine Winfield was in the lineup, out of the lineup, back for the Super Bowl. They had a healthy team. That is so uncommon. So my thing, biggest obstacle is just history and themselves, and just how difficult it is to stay healthy and maintain what you had last year, carrying it over to a full other season.
Yeah.
No one repeats in the NFL. It hasn't been done since 2004, and a lot of that is not because of complacency or because they didn't want it or because of locker rooms. Just because, hey, we weren't the same team. We weren't healthy anymore. Something happened.
Yeah.
Knock on wood a million ways here. The league is now a week longer. There's now 17 regular season weeks. There's now another playoff game in the game. Here's how I see it. Last year, I picked the Chiefs to play the Bucs in the Super Bowl. I was right with that. I was wrong with the Super Bowl because I thought the Chiefs would get over the hump and say, hey, we're going to be the repeat team. What happened? Injuries happened. Look at the Chiefs' offensive line week one, and then look what they had to deal with in the final week of the season when they played the Buccaneers. Why? Because there was injuries all over the Chiefs' offensive line. Look at that left tackle situation. They went from being a former top 3 overall pick to Mike Remmers, who hadn't played that position. You go right down the list, every single position on their offensive line had to be changed because of injuries. This is what happens. It wasn't like Mahomes fell asleep and couldn't wake up the next day. I just think it's really difficult. And O.J. Howard was a tight end. They had other ones. There's going to be something that comes up health-wise with this team. That's why it's such a difficult obstacle. And gosh, is that some way to kick off the NFL season? Someone's gonna get hurt. Let's go. No, I just really mean it. It's
And if they don't get hurt, they might get sick. That's fun.
That's the thing.
Hello.
But that's the reality. I'm sorry. It's really hard to repeat.
Yeah. Peter, to your point, man, I mean, you cannot guarantee that type of health this year. You just can't. And then you talk about, you got vaccinated players, unvaccinated players. The world is opening up more. When guys aren't at the facility, you can't just guarantee that, COVID won't make it into your building. I think it's going to be tougher for them this year. And you mentioned something about complacency, Peter, and I think that's a real thing. You heard Sarah talk about, Tom Brady and Gronk. They're used to, having to come back and be the top dog, but most of this roster isn't. Most of this roster wants to go out there and see the names go up. They want to see the banners go up. It's an awesome experience. I ended my career after I won my Super Bowl, so I could do stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, it's a one-in-a-lifetime experience, and so I just hope complacency doesn't set in, because it's very tough to play 17 Super Bowls a year. And what I mean by that you're the top dog. Every team is looking at you at the beginning of the season saying, that's the standard. That's who we have to beat. That's who we have to be better than. I'm telling you, Tom Brady, Gronkowski, they know how to deal with it. But the rest of the team, they got to figure that part out.
17 straight Super Bowl hangovers. I mean, that's a beautiful way to put it, 17 Super Bowls a year. And listen, the biggest obstacle, I'm with you, is 31 other teams. This is the NFL, and it hasn't happened in 17 years. And yes, it was Brady in 2004, but none of these other guys. Here's what I feel about the Bucs. They had a hell of a stretch run. I mean, they came running down the stretch. But let's not allow ourselves to think that this is some unbeatable Godzilla of a team. It's not. Peter, they were 7-5. I don't think that's an impressive thing. I know it's their starting point, but they weren't even sure they're going to make the playoffs. They really weren't. They lost to the Nick Foles Bears. They lost to Jared Goff. They got embarrassed by Drew Brees almost retiring. And again, I take nothing away from them. They won everything at a hell of a run. But the playoff run, it's not exactly like they stomped people. Taylor Heineke gave them trouble. They pulled the MVP off the field with a chance to beat him, Aaron Rodgers, and then they played a wounded animal in the Super Bowl. All right, this was not someone who won every single game like the greatest show on turf and just destroyed everyone. We got so intoxicated by the idea that they brought back all 22 starters. We kind of forgot that those starters last year lost some big games and lost some games they shouldn't have. And maybe they'll lose one tonight. This is not the greatest team of all time. It's the greatest quarterback of all time with a good roster, but do not think they cannot be beaten. There's 31 other teams that want to knock them out.
Let's go.
Come on.
There's a reason this doesn't happen. To Peter's point, to everybody here's point, it's not even in your hands the entire time, but it hasn't happened in almost 20 years. It happened in 2004. I mean, just ask Tom Brady. Tom Brady has won 7 rings. He's had 6 chances to go back-to-back and win Super Bowls. It's happened to him once. Back in 2004, Brady's 27 years old. I just went and looked at the perspective of this. Vince Wilfork was a rookie the last time this happened. Asante Samuel was 23. His son, who just got drafted, is about to turn 22 years old. Dolphins head coach Brian Flores wasn't even coaching yet. He was on the staff, though. He was the 23-year-old scouting assistant. And Titans head coach Mike Vrabel, he was on the team, of course, and he still had 6 years in the NFL playing as a player, left after that back-to-back Super Bowl win. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen for a reason. Now you throw in COVID, you throw in the evolution of the game in 2021. It'll be exciting to see how it starts tonight. We've got special programming all day long on NFL Network. NFL Now kicks off at 1 p.m. Eastern. Then we've got, I think, Fantasy live at 5 p.m. Eastern, NFL Game Day kickoff. And it all leads up to 6 p.m. Rich Eisen, the full treatment. All of the stars will be there with Steve Mariucci, Michael Irvin, Kurt Warner. That one kicks off at 6 p.m. Eastern right here on NFL Network.